So thanks all for joining us today. We're really excited about doing this session. Many of us who present on webinars, Zoom, whatever it may be these days, tend to do it from an organizational perspective. And so today I feel very fortunate that we get to talk about a topic that really pertains to the individuals, you. And we were invited to talk about this because being brave is not easy, but when you figure it out and when you get to practice it a little bit, it is quite magical. And when I was asked to deliver this presentation, and I know one of the reasons is I have an endless amount of energy. So most of the time when people are around me, they just feel like they have to do something because they feel hyped up. And when I thought about who I could present this with, I contacted my colleague and friend, CJ. And CJ, who you will meet, is so full of energy too. And we'll be able to, you'll see it. You'll see the magic that he brings. And then when Chemo joins, many of you I know on this call today, no Chemo, and just a wonderful human being. And so between the three of us, we cannot be happier to be here today talking to all of you. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to kick it off. But one of the things we want to be sure of is that you are always talking. So continue chatting it up and ask us questions and we will get started. So, okay, we are going to start. Can you all see my screen?
I can, Don.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so we're going to start with this big ugly word. I thought about how we were going to kick this presentation off, and the title is Magic in Being Brave. And we started to really think about what prevents you from being brave, and it's this big word right here. And so we're going to talk about what it is that we can break down when it comes to fear so that you can move into the next level. And that next level is going to be magical because we're going to be able to talk through some of the reasons why you fear. And when you're able to practice that over and over again, you're going to find that you have the power and the magic in order to try new things. And those new things will eventually lead you to where you want to be that brave person. Now, even though we had to start with the ugly word fear, one of the things that I want you all to know is that you can't be brave without fear because there's a lot that you need to there are a lot of emotions that you need to cultivate and to feel in order for you to be passionate enough to do something that's hard for you. And so you do need to have those types of emotions, the fearful ones, the I'm afraid, the I'm scared, in order to overcome them and try something new. So the magic in being brave is how you manage that fear. Yeah. We are going to, one second. And so right now we're going to talk a little bit about how you can do that. And one of the main ways that we want you to consider fear and overcoming fear is to get the facts. These days, there's so much uncertainty out there. It's actually really, really hard to get facts. But asking questions and surrounding yourself with people who you trust will help for you to get answers and to at least have the ability to talk through some of what you're concerned with so that you can get different perspectives. And those perspectives will help you be stronger in where you want to go. Then there's another whole idea of the unlearning that we need to do. We hear a lot about unconscious bias these days. We all know, whatever age we are, we've been taught something our entire lives, and to think that it might be different, or what could things be like if we didn't think of it that way. That's hard to do. But when you do it, it opens up the opportunity for you to envision what else could be. And it's those paths that we need to start charting out. And then break it down. It doesn't have to be something that is so long-term or so ambitious that it feels too overwhelmed. Each thing that we do, each effort that we're looking to achieve can be broken down into small pieces. And when they're broken down, you can take them on in smaller chunks and you then get small wins. And that's what you need to be defining. What does that small win look like so that you can go to step one, feel accomplished, and have the confidence to go up to step 2, 3, and 4. And so defining those small wins and celebrating those small wins is really essential. And then we also have to commit with a try. It doesn't have to be commit to complete. Commit to try. And that will at least start to get all of those emotions going so that you can pump yourself up to try something new. And so it doesn't, so when we're all done and we leave here today, that's one of the things that we're going to leave you with, that you commit to try something. It doesn't have to be to win something. It doesn't have to be to achieve something, but try something that's going to help you get a little bit closer to being brave. And then finally, to trust yourself. When you trust yourself, that's what's going to give you the power to continue. And I know that that is not easy, but building the confidence that you need in order to get to the next level comes from those previous steps that we just discussed. Getting perspective and getting facts, surrounding yourself with people who you feel can help you move forward, unlearning and rethinking and breaking down and celebrating those small wins. So all of that is really what's going to bring the confidence and the trust in yourself for you to do that next best thing. And with that, hold please. Here we go. Okay. So what if everything was different? And CJ, I am going to ask you how you feel about, we know what's coming for the audience because you did a great job in creating it, but a little bit of your perspective on some of what we just talked about, how to overcome fear.
Yeah, I mean, easier said than done, right? I think one of the things that's been helpful to me is understanding that fear can actually be a friend versus trying to, suppress it and make it go away. By recognizing that fear is present in there, that's usually the narrative, that's usually the story that helps us understand that we're on to something really, really good. And so even if you look at like some of the greatest kid stories of all time, like why does Sesame Street work, where, who in the world would go, oh, let's make an entire kids program out of monsters, right? Or Monsters Inc. And there's something really magical, I think, about learning to befriend the monsters underneath the bed and learning to befriend these things and going, okay, how do I now put fear in its place and overcome it versus watch it sort of, or try and make it go away, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think it's a good point. If you look at what's scary differently, just like we're talking about unlearning some of the things that drive fear, then you can get a hold of it. And I think both you and I share that perspective of looking back when we were kids and what type of experiences we had that formed the person that we are today. And part of what you're going to see in a little bit is, were those things the right things to learn when we were kids? I think we're all looking at that now to see, could there have been a more tolerant way for us to grow up, for us to be stronger individuals as children so that we would become stronger adults? And luckily, all of us here have that opportunity every single day. Every day that you wake up, you don't have to be the person that you were yesterday. You can be a little bit stronger. You can be a little bit different. As CJ will tell you, you can be a little bit weirder and be more accepting of yourself and be more accepting of the people who are around you. So we always have that chance going forward. And as much as it's an unlearning, it's also just like just an expansion in the openness that you have for what's going on around you. We talked a lot about, CJ and I yesterday and chemo, just about how our own perspectives have changed on the world over the past 6 months. I mean, everything has been, we have to look at everything differently now. And all of us are very positive people. And in all conversations that I've had with CJ and chemo, we tend not to talk about what has gone wrong over the past 6 months, but what opportunities we have been given because of the past 6 months. And that's something that I think I would encourage all of you to consider, because I know that it's been a tough time and all of us have been emotional in different ways, but we have also learned so much more about ourselves, about what we have right in front of us. As learning development professionals, I think many of us, we would get excited about the next plane ride, the next conference, the next session, being around people. And all of that was taken away from us. So we kind of felt this void, and then we have to decide how it is we're going to get our energy again. And I think it's forced us to look at ourselves and look at our own homes and our own cities and towns and backyards. And that has provided us with a new perspective on things. And then we have to say, none of what we did before may ever come back in the same way again. So how can we teach ourselves how to learn more about ourselves and do new things and be brave and try again? And that's one of the reasons I think many of you are here today. And it's one of the reasons why we started L&D Cares, because we are in a different situation now. And even though maybe that situation wasn't by choice, but it gives us so many opportunities, and we need to be strong about those opportunities so that we can take best advantage of them and live them out to their fullest potential. All right, CJ, you ready to kind of give a little bit of context to these kids' stories that we were talking about?
Sure.
All right.
That's right. I'm going to ruin things for people, but hopefully in a good way.
Would it be weird to think everything that we've thought of before is a little bit different? What if?
Okay, so on the subject of bravery and courage, I wanted to take a minute and talk about some of the false perceptions that we have when it comes to those things. Because if you kind of look throughout our childhood, like we've been told stories about what bravery and courage and honor and success look like through stories and TV shows, like since we were kids. And so I want to look at some of these narratives again, because I don't think all of them hold their weight today. Like let's talk about this story, right? Yeah. Well, I'm about to poke some major.
Well, I'm not sure what happened there, guys, but I'll keep on going. Basically, I was going to talk about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and how it is it's not the best story in the world. We've talked about we've grown up with it, but have you guys seen the claymation version, like the big, in the 1960s? There's just a lot of issues with it. First of all, Santa Claus, I hate to break it to you guys, but it's he's kind of a jerk throughout the entire thing. It's pretty sad. The thing opens up and you got Donner, who's Rudolph's dad, and you got Rudolph's mom, who's never given a name. Big surprise there because it's the 1960s. So yeah, like I said, no surprise there. And they're hanging out with baby Rudolph. Baby Rudolph's just born, and all of a sudden you got Santa Claus coming in, and the first thing he sees is the kid's schnoz and goes, "Hey, look, you're gonna have to fix that, or else he's not going to be on our sleigh team." Why? I have no idea. I don't know what having a shiny red nose has to do with a career in international parcel delivery, but apparently it's a big deal. And so you kind of fast forward a bit and yada yada yada. It's one foggy Christmas Eve, and then everybody, Rudolph saves the day because Santa is in a jam. It's a big snowstorm, and all of a sudden, boom, Rudolph comes in. And while on its surface that looks like a really good story, where like a misfit, somebody who's unique and weird, wins in the end, my problem with it is that Rudolph's value, his self-worth, his confidence, his bravery, they're entirely contingent on whether or not everybody else finds them useful, deems them useful. And I just don't think that's the kind of kids we want to raise. I don't think that's the kind of posture we want to have. But Don was talking about unconscious bias. These narratives are deeply, deeply embedded into our consciousness, into our psyche, where we start believing that we are only worthy, we are only valuable if and only if other people see that value, versus walking around with the realization that our intrinsic self-worth, our own DNA, our own uniqueness, our own light, if you will, is completely valuable and worthy regardless of what anybody says. Like Rudolph's nose was always shining at the very beginning. And again, I'm talking about cartoons here, and so it's hard to maybe bring this into a real life scenario, and I promise I don't sit around, wondering existentially like about the fate of cartoons all day. But I just think every time I watch Rudolph, I'm like, how much brighter would that kid's nose have shined, whatever the past tense of shine is, if somebody had cultivated it early on, if a coach or a grown-up or even a peer had seen it for what it was, instead we had to wait 90 minutes to see the very end of that movie. And again, that's that. It's easy for us to walk around in those narratives, especially when we are on the job search. We're looking for a job. It's easy to kind of go, okay, well, it's easy to sort of hand our identity and hand our value to a potential employer. And I mean, I went through a very similar season last year of, it was a little bit more complicated and unique to my own situation, but sort of a job searching sort of existential thing. And it sucks. It's like rejection on repeat. So I get it. But I think that the invitation for all of us is to step outside of that very linear, binary position of knowing, of believing that our worth and our value is contingent on whether or not somebody sees it, and walk around in the present moment realizing that we have ownership over that we have something to contribute to the world regardless. And in some weird way, I think in the interview process, like that's actually a good, like that actually works for us. Like there's a little bit of confidence, and that's sort of like when you're in a dating relationship, and like, there's something about like, oh, you don't need me. Oh, then I want you, it's so I think there's that too, but that's really, I think, Rudolph 2.0 and how it can apply to, our situation, especially in the uncertainty that is 2020. There's a lot of things that are uncertain. I think in some ways uncertainty is really good to lean into, but one thing that we can be certain of, I think regardless of what we believe about the universe and the world, is that our value is not something that is to be wounded, is to be changed by anybody's opinion, that it exists somewhere beneath the ever ebbing and flowing of other people's thoughts and opinions and perceptions.
CJ, just to add to that, first of all, thank you for your improvisation and just jumping into your own video. So I'm glad we're all back, but thank you for doing that. And then also just to add to that, I think many of us who are looking at new job opportunities, the way you start to find them is to look through a job rec. And it says all of the expectations of what you should bring to the table, but it doesn't know at that point what you could bring to the table. And so you never have that chance. However, what I think what's changing right now is through this group, we have a lot of you who are bold enough to reach out to us to say, this is what I'm looking for. This is who I want to be. This is what I want to do and what I think I can do. And then we can help you to provide, to find those opportunities. So I know Jennifer Brick was just on talking about networking. It's that important. And we are all here to help you be the next version of you. Unbiasedly. We're not going, and that's where you don't need to fit into a mold. You are you. And if you know the great things that you can deliver, it's fair to say those out loud, be loud about that, because we don't know what we don't know until you tell us. So I think that's something we should always say. I can do these great things. Don't be afraid to share that so that we can all start to figure out where talents really can be applied. And Kimo, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, I think this whole concept that you're mentioning, CJ, around fear is, I think in so many ways it's so positive, because I even think about, being as a trainer, and preparing, even like for today, I was, nervous a little bit about doing this. Is all the technology going to work? Am I going to get, become a speaker? That happens to me every time. I mean, literally every time I give a presentation. And so that fear becomes, again, I think a catalyst, a motivator, an energizer. And again, it is a matter of dependent upon me, as Don was saying, around, really then, it's up to me how I channel that energy to make it positive, and then, but I have to call it versus, retrenching and doing nothing about it at all. And that can have a very negative effect too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, something I'm going to surprise my guys here on this call with, but I didn't intentionally ask all of us to introduce who we are, because I wanted to prove something in the first couple of minutes, that we are people, regardless of our name, our title, or our resume. All of you are people, regardless of all of those things as well. What's hard sometimes, though, is once people get to know you, then you have to say, this is what I've done. This is who I am. So you are very selective about how you describe yourself. So now we're a few minutes in, you've gotten to know who we are, our personalities, and we make mistakes, we're able to recover, we're able to all join in together from wherever we are. So I'd love for each one of us now to talk to this group about what talents we bring that they may not have noticed in a resume, or if they went to our website, or what it may be. So go ahead.
I'll just go ahead. For me,
right.
Don, thanks for the question. What I pride myself most on is two things. One is just this whole sense of aloha spirit and having the spirit of aloha, which is really about being genuine, kind, caring, giving, generous. And then the second thing for me is I pride myself on really being a good connector. In Jennifer's previous session that I just attended, that was one of the things that I just think about, that one of my gifts is just being a good connector. I love connecting people. I love seeing when I've introduced you, for example, Dawn, to several people, when you see those relationships flourish.
Absolutely. And that is 100% true. I've known Kimo for a long time, and I fully support what you just described, and I appreciate the relationship. And CJ, how about you?
Oh man, I think I am a pretty consummate salsa spiller. So if I'm at a party, especially if I'm wearing a white T-shirt for some reason, usually, and there's dip or there's salsa and tortilla chips, I can't seem to get the tortilla salsa situation in my mouth. It's pretty. I mean, you could really set your clock by it. So that's really number one. Number two, I had a friend years ago, kind of a wise sage. He says, CJ, you connect people to the story that they're becoming. And I didn't even really understand what that meant at the time, but I really have sort of lived into that, that little kind of sentence spoken over me, where I feel like whether I'm sitting down over coffee with somebody, or now over Zoom, or I'm helping a company, or I'm writing or creating a piece of content, it's really helping people. My passion. I get up in the morning. I'll do it whether I get paid to or not, whether I'm 75 or 37. Is to really help people sort of connect the dots between who they are and who they're becoming.
It's great. And just a little bit about me. I've known my whole life I was born with too much energy and I moved too quickly. And sometimes people love that, and sometimes it's too much. And sometimes for me, it's too much, and I wear myself out. And so I had to learn how to use those powers, my superpower of endurance, and for best. And what I try to teach myself every day is that I need to plant seeds. That's my job, so that others can watch something grow. And in doing that, it creates patience for me, and it helps others to get on board with new ideas. If you do anything too quickly, or you force anything onto someone too fast, they won't learn it, or they won't absorb it, and they can't change behavior. So it's really something about planting seeds, at least for me. I get to plant seeds every day because I have too many ideas. I have too many wants. I have to. So I get to do it step by step. And I know I'm working towards something while I get to watch other people watch these things grow.
I would say in the brief time I've known you, Don, that's very true. It's very accurate.
Right. All right, guys. So now what about you? We are going to, all right, so I have to admit, the reason that CJ's video broke down was my fault. When I'm sharing my screen, I can't see any of you and I can't watch your chat. So I was getting to the point where I needed to see faces because, again, that's what I do. And so I made an attempt to log in on a second computer. And when I did that, all of a sudden the video was gone. So I promise you that you will all get to see that video because it was excellent. And also we have a few tips at the end as well. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. We're not going to do the video now because CJ did a great recap, but I also want you to see his awesome work because it is worth watching. So I'm going to share my screen now, and we're going to go back to a few of those tips. Kimo, you had some great ones for the L&D profession, so we can talk to some of those. So I'm going to go ahead and share right now, and we can talk to those. And then before we leave, we are going to challenge. Oh, look at that. Okay, hold on a second. Okay. All right. All right, Chemo. So you can explain, you've had a long career in L&D. And so these are some of the things that Chemo wanted to bring to your attention as you consider your career and being brave in that career.
Great. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, CJ. So as CJ was kind of talking about some of these archetypal stories, right off the road, the reindeer on the chat, we were talking about Bambi, for example, really how scary that movie was. I still can't watch it to this day. But we're talking really, as to Dawn's earlier points, really around understanding fear and also then the ability to move from fear to really being brave or courageous. And by the way, I would just cite probably one of the more well-known authors in this space is Brene Brown, who's done a lot of work around that notion of being courageous, which I just love. But from an L&D perspective, I thought I would just kind of make this really applicable to our space, just for us to think about it from an L&D perspective. So what I would want to encourage you to do in being how to move away from fear and move more towards being brave is, first of all, these as it applies to the world of work, would be really to know your business really well. I mean, to understand the industry that you're in, understand the language of your business. And I'm sure like any business, there's going to be tons of acronyms in your business. Those are important because those are, if you will, little credibility checks that people are always saying, do you know your stuff? Do you have a clear understanding as to how your organization makes money and what defines success for them? Therefore, what are your KPIs as an organization? When it comes, and these are really just top line things, but then it comes to the notion of, when you think about being an L&D professional, of being really that great business partner, one of the things I'd like you to think about would be, you're speaking first as a business partner, then you're speaking as an expert from your space, which in this case could be talent management or L&D or recruiting, for example. One of the things I want to encourage you to do is not to speak L&D, what I call mumbo jumbo. People, they find no value in it, or they'll just say it sounds way too academic. And quite honestly, they don't care. What they do care about is that they have a business challenge and you're their business partner to help them to solve that problem. So they need your input, guidance, advice, great questions like Don mentioned earlier, so that we can get underneath this to figure out really what is the challenge and then how are we going to solve it. So the thing I want you to think about as being a great business partner is, are you coming prepared to the table? Are you getting all the facts? Are you asking all the questions? Don, if you'd advance the slide.
Yep. Absolutely.
To this whole notion of, and I've been at many meetings where I've seen the senior most leaders saying, oh, this is clearly a training issue. They don't know what they're doing. They're not doing. And, after we did a bit of exploration, we really found out this was not a training issue at all. It was in many cases, it got down to, it was either a communication issue or it was a role clarification issue. It was that there was confusion around whose job or who was responsible to do that. So that I want us to think about, really in this case, it's stepping back, it's being brave to challenge the question, so that when you get asked to say, oh, this is really a training issue, it's probing more, getting a little more analytical, asking those right questions, then to find out what really is the business problem and what are we trying to solve for, rather than taking an order. Rather than saying, oh, yes, I totally agree that it is a training issue and therefore that's what we're going to go and solve. What I'm saying is don't let that become something on your shoulders without, first of all, doing all the due diligence to determine that. And then, you know all these steps here, but it's about doing good work. Are you doing really good work? Are you involving your team? Are you involving your business partner? Are you being a great communicator up and down, sideways, and to your stakeholders? Are you focusing on what the intended return to the business will be? And notice I didn't say money. In some cases, it may actually be sort of a return on investment. In some cases, it may be something completely different. It could be a return on service scores. It could be a return on efficiency or time saved. So figuring out what it is that you are trying to solve for and how would you demonstrate success in that. So that requires you then to analyze it, to test it, to then revise it based on the feedback that you got, and then rinse and repeat and do that again. And then the last thing I just want you to think about is, how then do you tell that story? How then do you tell that story of success, of what you just did and how you assisted the business to solve a particular problem with the intended results, And that's how you get, good begets more, and good begets better, and better begets more. And then that continues to grow and to expand. And ultimately, your credibility within the organization, you then becoming more of a trusted advisor. And I know you've heard that phrase many times before, but that's really, it's all about gaining the right to advance, to be able to have more of that trusted relationship that you're going to have with your business partners. So we just want to kind of wish you, as you think about this going forward, what are some of the steps to do that from a L&D application perspective? What are you done?
Yeah, thanks, Kimo. And I would just add one thing to that. Just rethink everything. Rethink how you are doing everything. And how would you do it again? Almost look at these past 6 months and maybe even the next 6 months as a gift. It's your time to have this space to figure out what it is that you want to do and try something. And get it, let's say here, get it out of your head and put it into motion. I think so much of what bogs us down is the fact that we have all these thoughts and we don't know where to put them. Put them somewhere, do something with them. If it's just talking to friends about them, or if it's actually starting to plot out a way to see them come to fruition. And one piece moves you. You only have to go one little bit. One try changes the path. One small win leads to a lifetime of change. You have to let yourself do that. You have to let yourself try. And in CJ's words, give yourself permission. He actually, for you, created a little permission slip to do that. And I love that he did this. And CJ, actually, I'm going to give you a second or here to just talk about the work that you've done and what it means to get weird. I think that your concept is fabulous, and I think it's exactly what all of us need to do.
Well, I love that. And I think it piggybacks off of Kimo's thought really well, where we call, there's design thinking, and then what me and my team created was weird thinking. We wrote a book called Get Weird, and it's really around finding, working really hard to find the differentiation in your team, in your organization, and maximizing results based off of that differentiation, not doing what everybody else is doing just because it seems like a good idea at the time, or so-and-so is doing it and it's working for them. And so with that, I think, that's on an organizational level, but that really comes down to us as individuals too. I think the more we lean into what makes us unique, what makes us different. I mean, you guys have heard this a ton of times before, but I find this fascinating every day that there's literally not one other human being exactly like us on the planet. I mean, the odds that we are alive breathing right now is just unbelievably insane. And so what are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with this one precious life that we have, whether we're on a team, whether we're on a search? And so that's just literally a permission slip, like the ones you used to get in school, just to remind you. Can print it out, you can just keep it on your desktop, and just reminds you to be your weird different self, because often we don't feel like we can do that. Often we're so worried about what the other company is doing, or what the other team is doing, or what other people look like. But yeah, that's where I'm coming from on that. So hopefully that little reminder is helpful to somebody.
Yeah, and to CJ, to give everything you just said context in the L&D world, I've been working with you guys in L&D for 20 years. I think for in the very beginning when I started, it was get a seat at the table. Then it was, so training is now learning, and learning is performance. So we were getting there. We were using these words that made it feel like what we did was more important. Right now, you are the heroes, because you are going to change the future workplace. We are going to create the workplace that our kids will work in, the tolerant workplace, the diverse workplace, because the training that we are creating and delivering is resonating with them now, and it will change that. We have this opportunity now. People are talking about people, and that's our business. And we are the ones that can lead that. So don't be shy about what you know and what you can do. You are needed. Companies may not even know it yet, but you do. This is what you've been doing. So you have great power right now. You just need the strength in order to go out there and make what you want happen. We've all done that. Look, like this crew on this call, and so many of you I see in the chat, you want to go out there and do the thing you love because you want to help and affect people. Do it. It's hard. We've all done it. Even last year, last year, Kimo and I did a conference together. Holy hard, hard. I mean, it took me months to get over it, but you know what? Those 3 days that we got to spend together was worth it.
It was awesome.
So you find doing these kinds of things, I mean, they're hard work, but it is worth it in the long run and you will benefit. So I highly encourage you to go out there and be the hero, because we need them right now, and you all have the capabilities and talents to make it happen. And with that, questions, or how about this? If you don't have questions, although I'm sure you will, we are here and available to connect with. So connect with us on LinkedIn. The materials that we presented today, or partially presented in the case of CJ's video, I will share with you all on LinkedIn, because it is worth it and is worth sharing. Just great stuff. The permission slip, go put it out there. Give yourself permission, give others permission to be weird and be different and be stronger, because in the long run, we'll all have a better dinner conversation about the great stuff that we did during the day if we let ourselves be a little bit different.
By the way, Don, just to share a quick story, one of my key beliefs in life is to have no regrets. And by the way, I made a big, bold decision to change my entire life based on asking that question. I said, if I didn't take this job, would I be regretful? And the answer was yes. If I didn't take this job, I would be regretful. So I had to go. I had to take the job. And that moved me to Italy. And then that led me to moving to Monte Carlo. I mean, it changed my life by having just that thought around that one simple, two words, no regrets, to be able to make that decision.
I hear you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Great comments on the side, CJ. Just awesome.
Yeah. Great working with all of you today. I see so many of you on the chat that, just great to see you all here today. Go out and do some great things. We are here to help you. You always have a support team. So go and do it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Aloha. Thanks, Don. Thanks, CJ.
Yeah. And
sure. Thanks,
sorry,
coming back to
sorry,
to the next.
I had to refresh. All of a sudden I was frozen. Thank you all so much, but I heard most of it. I want a cape. I love the weirdness. I love the bravery. I love all of it. I think it's so important, just in life in general. But I also think that looking for concrete ways where you can volunteer to help with a project, to help with the summit, to connect with people who have done something like this. If you're looking to build a portfolio, if you're looking for work, look for ways to reach out to people and ask how you can help and get involved. Because I think that some of the absolute best networking is sort of project-based networking, like you're working on something together. Just like I think learning is best when it's project-based, I think that networking can be as well. So I encourage everyone to think about, what that translates to for you when it comes to being brave, being weird, being creative, coming up with something and engaging with some people on a project. So thank you, Kimo, CJ, Dawn, so much for your session.